He's very well aware of that. The major feature of Islam's rejection of the cross is its conviction that it's not appropriate for a major prophet of God to come to an ignominious or a shameful or disrespectful end. That doesn't fit a true prophet of God. And they have a great deal of trouble with the resurrection because they do count Jesus as a prophet. Not the prophet they want, but anyway, a prophet. Hinduism is not just Muslims that reject the death of Christ. Hindus accept the historicity of the crucifixion, but there's no saving grace, there's no salvific portion or part that the cross has in that. Mahatma Gandhi, my wife and her mother and a lot of people I know would, when you're getting on to some kid, who do you think you are, Mahatma Gandhi? And so that's to let them know that you're not anything. You're a little punk, and I'm going to spank you if you don't behave. And so that's the way that goes. But Gandhi said, I could accept Jesus as a martyr. I could accept him as an embodiment of sacrifice. I could accept him as a divine teacher, but not as the most perfect man ever born. And he says that his death on the cross was a great example to the world, but that there's anything like a mystery or any kind of miraculous virtue in it, I cannot accept that. And so that's an important issue, because who is Jesus to you is the question of salvation. Who is Jesus to you? And that's important. So Gandhi loved the Sermon on the Mount. He loved Jesus' death as a great example of how we should live. We should sacrifice our lives. Gandhi came to believe that Western Christianity was really a great betrayal to everything that Jesus stood for. His most famous statement is, I love your Christ, but I hate your Christians. And so he's picking on us there, and we can all relate to that, because there are some Christians that are not great testimonies of Jesus Christ. I'm not sure they'll stay Christian, but anyway, those that claim it. But for Gandhi, his love for humanity, Jesus was simply a great example, not a savior. Nothing miraculous, nothing mysterious, nothing virtuous. He died, and that's a great example. We should sacrifice our life for others. The Sermon on the Mount, great example for us to live. But that Jesus has anything about salvation, that death and crucifixion is not involved. Buddhists view the cross as an example of victory over personal ego, transcending the ego of self. But there is no divine intervention. There is no permanence. There is no payment of sin. There is no payment for the penalty of sin. Transgression, by the way, has a penalty. We all know that. If you break the law, and our brother here in Christ pulls you over and gives you a ticket, it's because breaking the law has a price, okay? So you can get mad at him if you want, but that doesn't work. And so there's nothing about the payment or the penalty of sin. Payment for our sin is the fundamental difference that separates us from all other religions. Jesus paid the price for our sin. And other religions don't operate there. The great example, what a great teacher, all those things, but not the sacrifice for our sins. Go ahead, Carol. Oh, yeah. It's in their mind. Nirvana. If we think right, we'll just get there. Oh, no. Oh, no. If you do 85 different figures of yoga for the rest of your life, you'll get to somewhere. Probably an old folks' home trying to bend your legs and arms back into shape. No, there's no dynamic of heaven. And I'm going to probably say something about that in the sermon. Is anybody else? Barb? Okay, so Catholicism is a whole new kettle of fish. That's people branching off in about 300 A.D. From what Christ said into what they say. But in terms of feeling that there's a heaven, I think most Catholics feel that they're going to be in heaven, not hell, and not purgatory. Okay, the Bible doesn't say anything about purgatory, by the way. It don't exist. And I don't care how hard your kids pray for you after you die, you're not getting out of purgatory if that's where you ended up. There ain't enough prayers for that. You're not going to pray anybody out of hell. Might be a nice thought, but nobody has the power to do that. I don't think anybody really has the power to even pursue that. And so, okay, death of one man for all religions is absolutely out of the question. Buddhists, Hindus, whoever it is, they are locked into their religion. If you're not part of our religion, then you're not going, and we don't care what happens to you. And so that's the way that is. Christianity is for every single human. God's made out of one man every nation on the earth and set the boundaries for those nations so that they might seek God. Every nation. Jesus died, doesn't matter, black, white, pink, yellow, polka dot, whatever it is you come, freckled, Jesus died for us. And that's the way that is. And you can't find another religion that'll go to that extent. You can become a proselyte. You can become a good guy. You can become a nice woman. But in terms of being an actual part of their faith, you pretty much have to be born in it and then live it. Pretty much across the board in religion. Okay, so let's get 1 Corinthians 1, 18 and 19. Somebody read that for us this morning. This is the scripture we want to base our study on. 1 Corinthians 1, 18 and 19. It's pretty quick there in the, Sister Coco, you can do that, in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then Romans, and then 1 Corinthians. Verses 18 and 19. Got a green light? Yeah. Okay, so this is that the word of the cross, preaching the cross, declaration of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to you and I being saved, it is the power of God. And God says it in the ESV, I'll destroy the wisdom of the wise, the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. And so you're not getting to heaven by smarts. You're not getting to heaven because you have a degree or a certificate or a license or experience or have developed and sent a man to the moon. You get to heaven by the power of the cross. So the gospel writers, in a very interesting way, not copying so much from one another, in particular, the synoptic gospels are very similar, but the book of John, the Gospel of John, is very different. They all have blended everybody that stands on the street corner and sees a wreck has a different view. And so the same is true for those who stood there at the cross. The centurion said, "Surely this is the Son of God." That goes against all of his training. He had a revelation. And so the gospel writers, in particular Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and especially Matthew and Mark, are very similar. And so the gospel writers make it clear that the accused, Jesus, was not guilty. They all come to that conclusion. The sentence of death was a gross miscarriage of justice. It wasn't justice at all. And the courts were influenced by personal and moral factors that played a role in the verdict. And so if you've been in a courtroom, then you know that those things all function in every courtroom. There are personalities there. There are issues there that are important to those making the decision. And it plays into their decision. So a lot of people blame the Roman soldiers and Pilate. And obviously, in the immediate circumstance, the responsibility for the crucifixion was in the hands of the legal authorities of Rome. And the soldiers were ordered to carry out that sentence determined by the authorities in Rome. The gospel writers don't tell us very much about the process, but contemporary documents fail in details of what the crucifixion was like. But they have myths, they have stories, they have ideas. So the soldiers, the crucifixion, the day that Jesus was crucified, the soldiers, they stripped him naked, laid him on his back, and he was either nailed or roped to a crossbeam of a cross that would be the crossbeam of what would be the cross, and his feet were similarly fastened to the pole. Now you can read, there are doctors that have written what goes on in a crucifixion, and it's pretty moving if you want to read it. And so you can find that and read that on your own. But it may have had a place on the pole, the vertical pole that would support some of the body weight and keep his hands from being ripped off of the cross by the weight of his body, although I'm sure Jesus didn't weigh very much. He was a Middle Eastern Jew who lived a frugal life and walked hundreds of miles. So I don't think he was real overweight. There he would hang until dead. He wasn't dead when they put him on the cross. He died while he was on the cross. The pain, the changes from day and night conditions of weather, the mocking of the crowds could endure for 3 or even 4 days until a person died. That's why they were surprised that Jesus was already dead. You know why he was dead? He gave it up to God. He gave it up to God, his life. That's why the soldiers were all surprised That's why they agreed to break his legs. So why would you break your legs if you're hanging on a cross? What were the legs about? Bill.
To make sure he was dead. To be able to breathe, he had to support himself, and with broken legs, he wouldn't be able to do that.
Right. So the point is that if you're going to breathe and you're hanging, you have to have some way to lift your rib cage up. And your legs are really important to give you a fulcrum or a base to push from. And so there were absolutely no way he would live once they broke his legs. None of that is described in the Gospels. It's not in the Gospels. They do tell us that Jesus began by carrying his cross. And we can kind of assume that he stumbled and fell under the weight of that after being beaten and abused for hours and hours and hours, no longer any strength. And so they drafted a man, Simon, just as he is arriving in Jerusalem from North Africa. He was coerced to carry the cross to Golgotha's hill, which he did. All four evangelists simply say they crucified him. They don't go beyond that, much beyond that. Some of the details from earlier tell us that he was clothed in purple, that they mocked him by placing a crown of thorns on his head, mocking, spitting, beating, blindfolding him, raffling off or gambling for his seamless robe. All of that occurred the day that he was crucified. He was beaten and abused. The soldiers, we can say this, the soldiers were obeying orders. I think they were obeying orders plus. You know? So here is a victim. He's going to die anyway. We might as well get our kicks on Route 66. Amen. We're going to beat him with 66 stripes, not 49 or 39 or 20. And so they were obeying orders. Jesus said during that time, he uttered the words, Luke 23:34. Jesus said, Father, forgive them because they do not know what they are doing. And they cast lots for his robe. So that's the soldiers. Who killed Jesus? The soldiers killed him. Okay. The procurator. The case for the Roman procurator is different. Apparently, he's the one who ordered the crucifixion. Pilate. He was appointed procurator or governor by Emperor Tiberius. And he served from the year 26 to the year 36. So we know that Jesus was crucified in that period of time. His reputation for fair play in governing was brought into question because he hated the Jews. He had a lot of contempt for the Jews. He displayed the Roman standards. It's the Roman standard. What's the Roman standard? These would be called standards, these flags. Or you would have drawings or depictions of their royal crest or their seal. A lot of people buy a crest or seal for their name, display it in their home or on their door even. So he put these symbols of Roman power in Jerusalem. How did Jews feel about symbols? How did they feel about symbols? Pictures, drawings. Barb?
Well, they weren't into that. They were only into things like, later on the menorah and things like that.
Okay.
They wanted to worship the invisible God.
Yeah. Okay, so God's invisible, so you can't make an image of him. Can't make a representation of the god Roma. You can't put that up in Jerusalem. And he really did offend them. And he also offended them by stealing, literally stealing, some of the temple offerings and building an aqueduct into Jerusalem. So he was contemptuous of Jews. Standards are vital military banners representing units, rallying troops, symbolizing pride, featuring symbols like eagle, wolf, emperor's image. Aquila the eagle, those were the most sacred or animals that were displayed for the legions of soldiers. And the soldier, at boot camp, I don't know if anybody in here has been to boot camp, but at boot camp they have a game called Capture the Flag. And so that's your rival platoon. They have a flag, they have a banner, and if you can capture that, you've conquered them. You've conquered them. And so there's that game. He misappropriated temple funds. The riot, when he took the funds out of the temple, he killed a numbers of people, and he mixed the blood of Galileans or commoners with the blood of the sacrifices being made at the temple. He defiled the sacrifices being made. And so Philo, a Hebrew philosopher, 10 to 15 BC to 45 CE, says King Agrippa wrote to emperor that Pilate was inflexible, merciless, and very obstinate. So he didn't get along with anybody. Luke, let's get a couple of scriptures here. Somebody get for us Luke 23, verses 2 and 3. Will he get that for us? I need Matthew 27:19. Isaac, get that for us, 27:19. Matthew 27:19. Somebody, Luke 23, 16 to 22. 16 and 22. You got Luke 23 anyway? Okay, so you get those two. Mark 15:15. Jesse, get that for us. And John 19:12. John 19:12. Somebody, Manny will get that for us. Okay. So, Brother Slider, Luke 23, verses 2 and 3.
And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidden to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king." And Pilate asked him, saying, "Art thou the king of the Jews?" And he answered him and said, "Thou sayest it."
Okay, so here's an accusation. Why is he uptight? Because he lives under the rule of the emperor, who is a king, has no rivals, and here's Jesus. We found this man misleading the nation, saying he was a king. Okay, Matthew 27:19.
When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, "Have thou nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him."
Okay, so here's Pilate's wife. She's trying to help him, but she wasn't any help. Said, "I'm having dreams about this guy. I have terror in the night about this guy. You better leave him alone. Why don't you wash your hands from it?" Oh, yes, that's a good idea. I'll wash my hands from it. And so that comes later. Matthew 27:19 is sitting there on the benches of the governor's seat or Pilate's seat, and he insists. It's very interesting. He says, "You're a Galilean. Okay, I don't have any jurisdiction over you," and so he sends him to another governor, to Herod. That's just escapism, because Herod says, "I don't have anything to do with him either," and sends him back. And so Pilate insisted that there is not a charge. There isn't a charge. There isn't a charge against this man. And so Pilate tries to evade the question. He tries to evade and get out of the pickle that he's in having to judge Jesus, because he has an element of fear in him. He knows Jesus can raise the dead. Well, if he can raise the dead, he can certainly put him back. And so I don't want to mess with this guy. Luke 23:16, Willie.
I will therefore chastise him and release him.
Okay, and read verse 22.
And he said unto them the third time, Why, what evil hath he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go.
Okay, so 3 times Pilate tries to plead with the crowd. I'm going to have him whipped. I'm going to have him chastened. I'm going to have him beaten. I'm going to have all these things done to him. Then I'll release him and let him go, because nothing has been done wrong by him. 3 times. The custom at that time was to release a prisoner at Passover. He asked the crowd, what do you want me? Who do you want? You want Jesus or Barabbas, this other hardened criminal? They opted for Barabbas. Pilate tries to evade personal guilt and finally washes his hands, saying he's innocent. I have nothing to do with this. So you have to ponder Pilate's dilemma. But he capitulates to the crowd. And so for the soldiers and for Pilate, the issue with Jesus for them was an issue of cowardice. I'm going to yield to the crowd. I'm going to yield to the mob. I'm going to yield to the powers that be here. Because I don't want to run amok of Tiberius. I don't want to run amok of any of our people, our soldiers. And so he is a coward. Pilate is a coward. And you know what? He won't stand for an innocent man. He's simply a coward. So Mark 15:15.
So Pilate wanted to gratify the crowd, release Barabbas to them, and he delivered Jesus after he had scourged him to be crucified.
Okay. After having had him beaten and flogged, he released him to the soldiers to be crucified. Did I give 19:12? John 19:12. Okay, so here is his cowardice. Not willing to face the crowd. He capitulates to the crowd. He doesn't want the crowd to say, when they want him writing letters, don't write letters to Tiberius saying that I let a man who says he's a rival king go. I don't want that. And so Pilate was a coward to do right. So the Jewish people were involved in this. Pilate's dilemma does not make him innocent of condemning Jesus to be crucified. He's a coward to free him. But he's not innocent of the charge that you need to crucify him. So Pilate's dilemma, he didn't want to be accused of subversive actions. Jesus told Pilate, you have no authority over me at all if it had not been given to you from above. That's why the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin. So the Jewish people and the priest, they had a role. Acts 3:12-13. Peter in Acts, the book of Acts, he's preaching. He lays the charge clearly at the feet of the Jews. Fellow Israelites, why are you amazed at this? That's the healing of the lame man at the temple. Why are you amazed at this? The God of our ancestors has glorified his servant Jesus, whom you handed over and denied before Pilate, though he had decided to release him. He says very clearly, Pilate had decided to release him. You denied the holy and righteous one and asked to have a murderer released to you. You killed the source of life. He laid the charge at the feet of the Jews. Why were the Jews so adamant about the crucifixion? Pilate was motivated by cowardice. What motivated the Jews? Bill?
They believe he committed blasphemy, and blasphemy, you kill him.
Okay, that's the charge that they brought. He blasphemed. What did he blaspheme?
I am God.
Okay, he made that statement that he's the Lord, he's God, but he's also, it's his house, the temple. Blasphemy. I will tear this temple down. And so there's an issue there. What else? What else might motivate them? Jealousy. H.B. Sweet. He detected under their disguise the vulgar vice of envy. Jealousy. Mark 27:18. Somebody get that for us? Mark 27:18. Somebody with the Bible, Jolene will get that for us. So Pilate's well aware of what's going on. 27, I think 18. Matthew. Mark doesn't go to 27.
Okay. 27, 18. I'm there. Okay. For he knew that because of envy they had handed him over.
Okay, because of envy they had handed. For he knew. Who was he? Pilate. He knew it was because of envy that they handed Jesus over. Envy was the motivation for killing Jesus. So we had cowardice from the procurator, from the governor. We have envy here. Jesus was a very threatening rival. If Jesus has these massive crowds and they actually promote him or push him into some kind of an office somewhere, he overshadows them. Never a man spake as this man. They were astonished at the words that he spoke. And so they're astonished because he doesn't teach them like the rabbis teach them. The rabbis taught by rote. You memorize that the issues that other rabbis had written about, that other rabbis had written, that other rabbis and other rabbis, all the way back to Moses. They all copied these things. They all memorized these things. They all lived by these things and didn't know what they meant. You know, I won a couple of contests when I was in grade school, in the Sunday school, for memorizing scriptures. I wasn't profound at it. I mean, everybody else refused to look or think about it. I just memorized it and said it, but I didn't have a clue what they meant. I'm glad I memorized them. They came back later and helped me. But when I was in grade school, I just memorized them, and that's what they learned. They just went through the Hebrew writings, memorized them. If they didn't memorize it right, they got a slap on the wrist and learn better next time. And so, two jealous plots to destroy the King of Glory. One was at his birth. Herod did not want a rival. No rivals. So we're going to destroy all the children, all the boys under 2. No rivals. That reminds me of Pharaoh. Kill the babies. Kill the boys. Reminds me of our generation. Kill the men. Boy, you all rose up on me on that one. Okay. And that's all right, because they felt their authority, their dominion, their power was threatened. Envy put Jesus on the cross. The cowardice of Pilate, the envy of the Jews, and then there is Judas Iscariot. It's not infrequent that you hear an argument kind of defending Judas. You hear an argument. You hear, well, Judas got an unfair deal as a disciple. Chosen. Whoop, 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 whoop. It's unfair, unfair. All three synoptic gospels put Judas at the bottom of their list. When they list the disciples, Judas is the last one. So, they all put him on the bottom. And it's true that Jesus knows who his betrayer is. And it's true that Jesus knows that what comes down is going to come down according to the Scriptures. It's going to happen that way. That's the way it's going to happen. But the Bible does not exonerate Judas. John 13:25. John 13:25. We'll get that. Somebody quickly get that before we move on beyond this thought. John 13:25. Willie. I think Matthew 13:25. John.
He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it?
Go on now down to wherever it says, the one I dip.
Jesus answered, It is he to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon.
Okay, so here he is. Jesus knows exactly who his betrayer is. Carol. The people had the power against. Oh, he's the governor.
So he made everybody do whatever he wanted them to do.
Well, they didn't do what he wanted them to do. Because he wanted to release Jesus. But they wanted. Okay, so Pilate's in a pickle because he doesn't want them to kill him. There's an angry mob out there. So when you're facing an angry mob, you kind of do what you have to do. You have to, Jesus, he had a lot of angry mobs. What did he do? He walked through them. He walked through them. Richard.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that what happens here is, I think the Pilate's the governor's wife figures out that she knew that we didn't realize what manner of man this is.
Yeah.
And then when Jesus says to Judas, it would be better if you were never born. Now, think about that. If you would never be born, what does that mean? Where are you going? What's going to happen to you?
Well, you don't exist.
Better if you never were born. It'd be better if you never had existed. That blows me away right there. And you think about that. I mean, could we be that manner as well?
Well,
And so interesting. If we don't know who this man is that was crucified for us, it'd be better if we weren't born too if we don't get that.
Okay, so if you go there, you understand Judas. You know, there is such a thing as free will. We all make decisions. The other telling point about Judas is he's already been in conversation with the people that want Jesus dead. He knows who they are. When he leaves that meal, he knows exactly where he's going and who he's talking to. The Son of Man is glorified. John 13:31. Little children, I'm with you a little while longer. You'll look for me just as I told the Jews. So now I tell you, where I'm going, you cannot come. And so prophetically, in Isaiah 41:9, even my friend in whom I trusted, one who ate my bread, has raised his heel against me. You know, it's people ponder Judas. Let me say this as carefully as I can. Because as a betrayer of Jesus, we could all slide into that arena. We could all slide into the arena of surrendering Jesus to our friends. Yeah, you're right. He's just another Middle Easterner, doesn't know what he's doing. We could very easily slide into that arena. Even my friend in whom I trusted. Jesus said to the disciples, I call you friends. I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. And so it's kind of a mystery of how Judas could betray Jesus after being with him for nearly 3 years. Some people say he got hooked up with the fire of nationalism, that he became very nationalistic, a defender of the Jews and different kinds of things. That's one, perhaps, but there's a more powerful perhaps, and that is that he's the keeper of the purse. He's the treasurer of the apostolic band. 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. The telltale event is when Mary of Bethany comes and anoints Jesus. And what is the reaction of the disciples? What's the reaction of those that watch that? What's their reaction when she anoints him? It could have been, they're upside. Hey, wait. All of that could have been given to the poor. I mean, there are a lot of other things we could have done with that money, like buy a ticket on the next plane. We can get out of here with that money. And it was very pricey, very costly. What did Jesus say in response to that argument?
The poor you will have with you always.
He said that on another occasion. David? I've been anointed for burial. For a burial. Jesus is not dumb. He understands exactly what's going on. He understands exactly what's going on. He understands who's eating with him. And he understands what's in their heart already. Her heart, she's sacrificing for a great thing and is preached about still today. And then Judas Iscariot is not sacrificing. He's taking the money and running. What did he get for just betraying, just for going up to Jesus with the soldiers behind him and kissing Jesus? What did Judas get? 30 pieces of silver, which did him no good. No good at all. Because he did hang himself. So it's impossible to serve God and money. So Judas could not do both. He couldn't live for the money, and he couldn't serve Jesus at the same time. You know, you can make all kinds of cases. You can say, well, Judas, yeah, he betrayed him, but he had no idea they were going to crucify him. Well, yeah, he did. He'd been told 3 times. He didn't know what course that mob would take. He didn't understand what all would happen. some people make the case that Judas really believed he was triggering Jesus to become a national king. Some people would say what Judas was thinking in his mind was, yeah, they'll come and arrest Jesus, and Jesus go and blow them all down. And then ride that fame into power. And then I could be somebody too. But Judas didn't. How many of you know we don't know tomorrow? we're not that astute. Okay, we don't know tomorrow. And so Judas chose to take the money. So the conclusion, why? What has my Lord done? What makes this rage and spite? He made the lame man to run, gave the blind their sight. Sweet injuries, yes, they at these themselves displeased. They were all displeased at what he did, which was so good, made the lame man run. Horatius Bonar did he's called the Prince of Scottish Hymns. Thus, 'twas I that shed the sacred blood, I nailed him to the tree. I crucified the Christ of God, I joined the mockery. Of all that shouting multitude, I feel that I am the one, and in that din of voices rude, I recognize my own. Around the cross the throng I see, mocking the sufferer's groan, yet still my voice, it seems to be as if I mocked alone. Because we could be in any of those cases. Cowardice, envy, and greed put Jesus on the cross. Any question or comment right here? Ed?
We could say that the Romans didn't really know who he was. We could even say that for probably most of the disciples. They didn't really understand who he was. But we can't make that case for Herod, the king, because the wise men asked him, where is the king of the Jews?
Mm-hmm.
And he turned to his wise men and said, where is the Messiah to be born? So he made the connection, king of the Jews, Messiah. He knew Jesus was the Messiah, the promised one of all the ages.
Yeah.
But he didn't want the Messiah running.
Not just
running
yet.
So he wanted himself. And we can find a little bit of ourselves on there too, because before I got saved, I didn't want to get saved because I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. I didn't want Jesus to tell me what to do.
Yeah. And what do people say when they don't want to tithe? It's my money. Really? It's my money. It's my life. It's my decision. And we really like it that way. Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved and gave himself for me. And the cross is such a stunning event. And so we'll dig a little bit deeper next week. It becomes even more stunning, more incredible as we move through this. So praise God. Next week, Lord bless you. I have the service just a moment.